My name is Zara Ellison. I am 28 years old, and I want to tell you about the night my parents stood in front of 70 people and used my name as a warning. They said, "Do not make the choices Zara made." They said, "Do not waste your potential the way Zara wasted hers." They said, "Some people are given every opportunity and still choose to fail." 70 people were in that room. Aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents and family friends and neighbors. All of them nodding. All of them looking at me. And behind my parents, on the projector screen at the front of the hall, was my face, on the cover of a national magazine. Let me tell you what actually happened, because my parents had a version of this story. And the truth was something else entirely. I enrolled in a business administration degree at 20 years old. My parents had chosen the university. They had chosen the degree. They had chosen the career path they expected me to follow. Graduate, get a corporate job, work for someone else's company for 30 years, retire with a pension. That was the plan. Their plan. Not mine. By the end of my second year, I knew with complete certainty that I was in the wrong place. Not because I was struggling academically. I was not struggling. I was one of the top students in my cohort. But I was miserable. Every lecture felt like a ceiling closing in. Every assignment felt like practice for a life I did not want. I had been building things on the side since I was 19. Small things at first. A social media management service I ran from my laptop. 3 clients in the first month. 11 by the end of the year. By the time I was 22 and halfway through my third year of university, I had 34 clients and a monthly revenue that exceeded what most of my professors were earning. I made a decision. I withdrew from the program. I did not tell my parents immediately. I knew what they would say. I knew how they would react. I gave myself 3 months to stabilize the business before telling them. 3 months became 6. 6 became 12. And by the time I told them I had been running a profitable business for over a year, my mom cried. Not the quiet kind of crying. The loud, theatrical, what will people think kind of crying. My dad did not cry. My dad went silent, which was worse. He sat at the kitchen table with his hands flat in front of him. He said, "You threw it away." I said, "I built something." He said, "You threw away your education for a hobby." I said, "It is not a hobby. It is a company." He said, "It is not a company. It is a distraction." My mom said, "What do we tell people? Not what will you do next? Not are you okay? What do we tell people?" I said, "Tell them the truth." She said, "The truth is embarrassing." I said, "The truth is that I run a successful business." She said, "The truth is that you dropped out." That was the last real conversation we had about it. Because after that, my parents told their version to everyone. I found out what they were saying through my cousin Priya. Priya was 24, and the only person in my extended family who had ever understood me. She called me 3 months after I told my parents. She said, "Zara, I need to tell you something." She said, "Your parents have been telling everyone you dropped out because you could not handle the pressure." She said, "They told Auntie Rena you had a breakdown." She said, "They told Grandma you are still figuring things out." She said, "Uncle David asked me if you were okay because he heard you were struggling with your mental health." I sat with that for a moment. I had not had a breakdown. I had built a company. I had 34 clients. I had a team of 6 people working with me. I had just signed a contract with a retail brand whose products were in 400 stores nationally. But in my family's version of events, I was a cautionary tale, a warning, the example of what happens when you do not follow the plan. I made another decision in that moment. I decided not to correct them. I decided to let them keep their version, while I kept building mine. The next 2 years were the hardest and the best years of my life. I moved into a small office space. I hired 2 more people. I landed a contract with a national logistics company that tripled my revenue in 1 quarter. I was invited to speak at a business conference. Then another. Then another. A journalist from a regional business publication interviewed me. The article ran under the headline, "The College Dropout Who Built a 7-Figure Agency Before 30." I did not send it to my parents. I did not post it publicly. I kept working. 6 months after that article, a researcher from a national business magazine contacted me. She said they were compiling their annual 30 under 30 list. She said my name had been recommended by 3 separate sources. She said they wanted to feature me. I said yes. The photo shoot was in October. The magazine would publish in December, the same month as the annual family reunion. I did not plan that. I want to be very clear about that. I did not plan any of what happened next. The family reunion was held at a banquet hall my uncle rented every December. 73 people, round tables with white tablecloths, a small stage at the front with a projector screen. My parents were on the organizing committee. They had prepared a presentation about family achievements over the past year. Graduations, promotions, new babies, academic awards. I arrived with Priya. I had told nobody about the magazine, not even Priya. I sat at a table near the back. My mom saw me when I walked in. She smiled, the specific smile she reserved for public situations. The one that said, "We are a normal, happy family. Please look at us." I smiled back. I sat down. I ate. I made conversation with cousins I had not seen in months. And then my dad took the microphone. He talked about the importance of education. He talked about hard work and commitment and following through. He talked about the cousins who had graduated that year. He talked about the family members who had earned promotions. And then he paused. He looked at the room. He said, "And then there are the lessons we learn from the paths that do not work out." He said, "Sometimes people are given every opportunity and still make choices that lead them away from their potential." He did not say my name yet, but everyone in the room already knew who he was talking about. I could feel it, the slight shift in attention, the careful avoidance of eye contact from the people sitting closest to me. My mom stepped up beside him. She said, "We share this not to embarrass anyone." She said, "We share this because we love our family and we want everyone here to learn from the mistakes that have been made." And then she said my name. She said Zara had every opportunity. She said, "Zara made a choice that broke our hearts." She said, "We hope that tonight, seeing the achievements of everyone else in this room, she finds the motivation to get back on track." 72 people were looking at me. I did not react. I sat with my hands in my lap. I kept my face completely still. And then I heard Priya make a sound beside me. A sharp intake of breath. I turned to look at her. She was staring at her phone. Her hand was shaking slightly. She turned the screen toward me. The magazine's official social media account had just posted, announcing the December issue. 30 faces on the cover. Mine was in the center. The caption read, "Meet this year's 30 under 30. The entrepreneurs redefining what success looks like before 30. Priya looked at me. I said, "Not yet." She said, "Zara." I said, "Wait." My dad was still talking. He was saying something about the value of a degree. He was saying something about long-term planning. My cousin Daniel, who was 17, and sitting 3 tables away, had also seen the post. He had a Bluetooth connection to the projector. He used it every year to play music during the reunion. I saw him look at his phone. Look at the screen behind my parents. Look at me. I gave him the smallest nod I could manage. He connected his phone to the projector. The presentation my parents had prepared disappeared. The magazine cover filled the screen. 30 faces. Mine in the center. The caption underneath. My dad stopped speaking mid-sentence. My mom turned around. The room was completely silent for a moment that felt much longer than it was. And then my Uncle David, who had been told I was struggling with my mental health, started reading the caption out loud. He said, "Meet this year's 30 under 30. He said, "The entrepreneurs redefining what success looks like before 30. He looked at my parents. He said, "Which one is Zara?" Priya stood up. She pointed at the center of the screen. She said, "That one." That one. The center of the cover. 72 people turned from the screen to me. And then back to my parents. My dad still had the microphone in his hand. He did not say anything. My mom sat down at the nearest table. I stood up. I walked to the front of the room. I took the microphone gently from my dad's hand. I said, "Thank you for having me here tonight." I said, "I have some people I need to call." I placed the microphone on the table. I walked back to my seat. I picked up my bag, and I left. Priya texted me from inside the hall for the next 2 hours. She said, "Nobody is talking." She said, "Your dad went outside and has not come back in." She said, "Your mom is crying, but not the loud kind this time." She said, "Uncle David is showing everyone the magazine on his phone." She said, "Grandma asked who taught you to do business, and when I said nobody, she cried too." I sat in my car in the parking lot and read every message. I did not go back inside. I drove home. I made tea. I sat at my desk. I opened my laptop. I had 3 new client inquiries in my inbox. I answered all 3. My parents called me 11 times over the following 3 days. I let every call go to voicemail. On the 4th day, my mom sent a message. She said, "We are proud of you." 3 words I had needed for 6 years. 3 words that arrived 2 hours after a projector screen said them for her. I did not respond immediately. I sat with it for a week. And then I called her back. Not because the magazine cover had changed anything between us, but because I understood something clearly now. My parents had needed me to fail so that their fear of failure made sense. When I did not fail, their entire framework collapsed. The magazine cover did not change who I was. It changed what they could see, and sometimes that is the only thing that needed to change. I answered the call. I said, "Hi, Mom." She said, "Hi." There was a long silence. She said, "Can we have lunch?" I said, "Yes." We have had lunch 6 times since that night. We do not talk about the reunion. We do not talk about the 2 years of being her cautionary tale. We talk about the business. She asks questions now. Real questions. With genuine curiosity. It is not everything I needed. But it is something. And sometimes something is enough to start with. I am 28 years old. I run a 7-figure agency. I have 41 employees. I am on the cover of a magazine. I used to read in waiting rooms when I was 19 and dreaming about a life I had not built yet. My parents told 70 people I was a failure. A projector screen told the truth. I did not plan that moment. I did not engineer it. I just kept building while they kept talking. And eventually, what I built was loud enough to speak for itself. If this story reached you today, I want you to know one thing. You do not need anyone's permission to build something real. You do not need their understanding. You do not need their belief. You just need to keep going. Because the work you do in silence will always be louder than anything anyone says about you. If this story moved you, subscribe to Covert Justice. Every week, we bring you true stories of survival, betrayal, and the kind of quiet human strength that never makes headlines, but absolutely should. Hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. You being here matters. And so does every single story we tell.